Posture, what I look at in every single eval, whether you're coming in person or virtually, is standing posture, as it's something that we can easily work on. It's free. You don't need a gym membership to work on it, and it burns calories if we're using the correct muscle. So just a little caveat, there is no ideal posture. There is better postures for us to be in. So I'm going to take you through what I look at from a head to toe perspective and things to start considering with your own body. Noticing, oh, that feels weird if I do that. That creates hip discomfort, etc. So first off, feet. Just take 4 steps in place and just see where you naturally land. I like to ask, where is your weight bearing through your feet? Do you feel like you're more leaned forward onto like your toes, ball of foot, middle foot, heels? Does it feel like one you bear more weight through laterally, so more on the outside, making this one more like medial, so more on the inside, creating a flatter arch on one foot, a higher arch? Or do you feel like you're more in the middle? Take note of that. Also take note of, do your feet point straight? Does one point out? Do both turn out? I like them to be straight. I like 3 points of contact, big toe, little toe, heel. Not a fan of being heel dominant. So I like to say, like, you should be able to easily go up onto your heels instead of easily lift those toes up. Going up the chain, knees. I want to make sure that they're not locked out. Okay, so soft knee bend, the softest knee bend at that knee joint. Pelvis. We want to find pelvic neutral. Everyone's pelvis in a neutral position is different from right to left. Okay, so what we're going to look at is finding your pubic bone, your 2 hip bones in the front. And then I'm going to go from a side view. You're going to go between untucking your tailbone, so then that pubic bone is deeper, your hip bones are more forward, versus tucking forward underneath into a posterior pelvic tilt. Now that pubic bone is more forward, my hip bones are more this direction. I want you to go back and forth between the two to where you feel that pubic bone, your pubic bone is stacked vertically right underneath your 2 hip bones. We should be able to maintain that without low back tightness, without glute clenching, without pelvic floor clenching. All right, so we have a little bit of just light activation into our glutes, into our lower abdominals, but doesn't mean we're sucking in. We can't take a nice deep breath. Okay, so pelvic neutral, knees slightly bent, feet relatively straight, equal weight, big toe, little toe, heel. Moving up, ribs, we just want to make sure that they're not in a flared position. So that's where I either virtually or in person will palpate and make sure that one isn't higher. So it's very common, especially postpartum, for that left rib cage to be out further and wider out that direction. So a flared rib cage, and so we would work on that in our sessions, because that's going to tell me if we're dominant with external oblique, internal oblique, transverse abdominis, rectus abdominis, if we need more shoulder blade awareness with serratus anterior, mid-back muscles, etc. So just making sure that those aren't flared, we can't grasp underneath them and standing. From a shoulder perspective, going back from the side, we have, if I'm in my neutral pelvis, pubic bone underneath hip bones, I have my greater trochanter here, a bony, prominent area on our lateral thigh. That's where my shoulder should ideally line up. Most of us, and I'm guilty as charged here, are here easily, especially when holding my baby, if I'm doing computer work. So just the slightest movement of the arm, where I see too much is people want to go here, right? And then now I'm thrusting my rib cage, now I'm in that anterior pelvic tilt. So I've lost this stackness. So again, neutral pelvis, ribs flared, ribs down, and then just moving that shoulder ever so slightly. So if we can't do that and move those shoulders and roll them back without rib flare, we either have some tightness in what we call this anterior arm line, we have some weakness in those mid-back muscles, which again, most of us do. So just that slight movement, rolling those shoulders slightly back, shoulders nicely down. So I'm also looking for if there's, if we have a biasness with the shoulder hiking on one side, that's going to create tightness on one side, lengthening on the other side. All right, and so that's usually a dominant, hand dominance with one side as well. Or if you carry your baby, your toddler on one side, just switch that up, noticing that can impact the jaw, which will then go back to the pelvic floor. Okay, lastly, so shoulders relatively level there. shoulders away from our ears. And as far as our head position, that ear should be in line now with that shoulder, in line with my trochanter, in line with my ankle. So side ankle here, tongue posture, the last bit here. If I'm not talking, if I'm resting, my teeth should not be touching ever, unless I'm chewing, okay? So the tongue should then be resting on the roof of our mouth, so against the high palate, and pressed along the back part of my front teeth, very lightly. Okay, so at rest, teeth are slightly apart, tongue suctioned up to the roof of my mouth. It shouldn't be hanging low. And this goes for sleep posture too. So that's going to feed back into our vagus system, vagus nerve, our parasympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, and then pelvic floor. So I hope you found this helpful. And if you are interested in signing up for a full body exam in person or virtual, I'll drop a link below, as well as this is 5 minutes of my 90-minute exam.